Well, hello there, Catherine Langman, and back with another episode of the Scale My Shopify Store podcast. And today on the show, I'm diving into a slightly different topic. So, most of my clients, and I'd say probably most of you listeners as well, are probably the same, are brands that sell both direct to consumer on your e-commerce website as well as wholesale to retail stockists. And so for a brand, as opposed to a retailer selling other people's brands, having that kind of dual business model of selling via e-commerce as well as wholesale is actually kind of my favorite business model. It's what I had in my first business and what I see succeed the best, for the vast majority of my clients. So the thing is, if you do a really great job of your branding and your marketing, you end up selling better via both channels than if you just concentrate on one, and you do it without the need for discounting so much. So, it means you're better able to sell at full price on your e-commerce store, which in turn helps your stockists to sell at full price in their retail stores as well. And of course, whilst your wholesale stockists obviously need a really good margin on your products, so you make less profit on those sales in order for your stockists to be able to profit. The wholesale sales model is actually highly leveraged, so with retailers reordering again and again and usually placing bigger orders more frequently than your e-commerce customers. But also, if you do a great job of your branding and marketing online, you do actually grow your sales volume and revenue for both your own business as well as your stockists as well. So it's a win-win if you do a good job of it. Now, one of the most common questions my clients are asking, though, aside, of course, from how to, really do well with their marketing and building their brand and getting traffic and sales, of course, is how do you actually wholesale? How do you do it? There's still a mystery around things like what you actually need to have in place in order to wholesale, like whether it's pricing or presentation or how to approach stockists and how to help them successfully sell your products. So to help me unpack this mystery for you today, I have invited the wonderful Melinda Farley, who is the founder of Kollektive, which is a wholesale distributor for many international as well as local brands. Now, it's a great conversation. You're really going to love this. Even if you are a retailer, you're going to get loads of value from this conversation as well, of course, as you brand owners out there. So without further ado, let's welcome Melinda to the show. Welcome to the show, Melinda. It's fantastic to have you here.
Hi, Kathy. Absolutely. And thanks for having me.
So good. So why don't we kick off our conversation today? Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself and your business.
Sure.
What do you do? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Melinda Farley. I'm the founder of a company called Kollektive, and I actually founded a brand. My story starts back in 2019, where rather 2009, I should say. Gosh, I've done myself out in 10 years, where I started a brand called Baby Inc., which is a long story, but I'll just shorten it by saying it takes little hand and footprints of bubs.
I remember it.
Yeah, like if a redundant FBI fingerprinting technology. So it was a really interesting way to capture gorgeous little hands and feet as easy and as mess-free as you can, and safe and non-toxic and so on. So I actually had my start way back then, and when my first son was born in 2009, and yeah, I was only sort of very young, 21 at the time. So I learned a lot very early on. And anyway, today I have Kollektive, which is, and still Baby Inc. under the portfolio, but we're a distributor for premium in-demand baby and kids products from big international brands, but also some local ones. So we service predominantly smaller independent retailers all around Australia and New Zealand, and we have over 2,500 points of sale today. So yeah, big journey.
Big journey, pretty incredible. And
Yeah.
I want to just quickly touch on that starting point and ask, was your first business kind of inspired by becoming a mum?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd always had that entrepreneurial brain, and I used to be a travel agent, and I was frustrated by a lot of corporate red tape, and so I was always in there trying to, I guess, what we call entrepreneur. I was building things and trying to present things and get things across the line. And in a bigger company like that, it's not always easy to do. But I had that skill set. I guess when I became a mum, I had noticed a gap in the market to find something that was like affordable, easy to do, a really good gift. There was not much on the market for that in terms of keepsakes. You could do lots of like water and plaster casting and frame it up, and you could have a professional do that, which was expensive, or you could have a go if you were crafty. But I wanted something that was a little bit foolproof, and so I saw that opportunity way back then. And I guess that sort of journey started, because I'd had my little one and loved how little his feet were and wanted to capture them.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but would I have come across your first brand at some baby expos back in the day?
Yeah, absolutely. You may have. I think we probably did a little bit of that. It was a predominantly B2C brand at the time, and I learned a lot in a very short space of time. I had the opportunity to actually sell it in 2013 and took that. I had 2 young kids. It was getting bigger. No one was really getting my full attention, so I had the opportunity and took it.
Yeah.
And fate had me buy it back in 2017 and then turn it into this. So yes, it's certainly a story.
That's so incredible. So you started off kind of B2C, selling direct to end consumers,
Yeah.
and had you already changed to the wholesale model as well, or adding that in before you sold it, or how
Yeah,
did that?
look, to tell you the truth, back then it was a road I hadn't known much about, the wholesale space. I knew that it needed a good retail presentation. We know how important presentation is for retailers in terms you can have a great product, but it's got to sit well on shelf. It's got to not take up too much room. It's got to be what they want. And so a little bit of work was done in that space, but probably not as much before it was handed over. When it came back, though, in 2017, I had eyes on wholesale because I knew that if I could give it a Instagrammable look, if that makes sense. I overhauled how it looked because I knew that if it was going to sit beautifully in gift bundles and be desirable in the Instagram world, it would certainly be beautiful on shelf. So that investment, I think there's a real investment to take it from, e-com off the kitchen table. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a real investment to make in getting it to a point where it's got barcodes and it's a bona fide retail product that will sit on shelf and that retailers can support.
Yeah, 100%. So let's dive into that journey then. Once you bought it back and you really, obviously gunned it on the wholesale side of things, because like, we were saying before we hit record, so many of my clients and our audience, they sell both. It's that dual business model, wholesale and e-commerce.
Sure.
But I mean, I assume still now it's the same as years ago when I got started. There just has never really been a whole lot of information about how you actually get started
How
in
you do this. Yeah, no, I hear that. And I would say, Kollektive's been founded really, really consideredly on loving a group that are traditionally a little bit unloved. So, generally speaking, you might, if you had a baby ink or any other product, you might be having eyes for Bunting, for example, or some of the bigger guys. And that's, of course, very tough. What we did with Kollektive is say, you know what, we're going to really just look after as best we can small independent, like small to medium retailers, generally independent. They might be the gift store in a country town, or there might be a baby specialty store. Generally speaking, they can be a little bit unloved because brands will often, especially these days, care for the B2C customer, that real B2C king. They really throw things at it, surprise and delight, speed of delivery, you name it. And we kind of wanted to take those principles about loving that customer and taking it into wholesale, because although they're relatively small volume buyers, lots of them, more often is certainly a lucrative opportunity. So we really built things around them and catered to them, and that's why. And we had strategic placement of big brands like Bibs and a few others. It allowed them the opportunity to really get that demand into store and that traffic and repeat referral business. So we're building up good relationships and trustworthy relationships with this big group of, now we trade with somewhere like 1,000 independent retailers. I knew that if I got the relationship right and I made it easy for them, that they would buy more things from me more often. And so it doesn't seem like it's not a wild concept. It's pretty basic, but it works. It's an important one.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if our world gets taken over by all of the massive retailers around the world, not pointing fingers to anyone, might be a little bit of a dismal world, hey?
Absolutely.
So what are these sorts of retailers look for when they're looking to range a new brand?
Yeah, look, I think for me, in wholesale, it's about presentation meeting barrier to sale. So, of course, if they come across your product and it presents beautifully and they can see they want it,
Yeah.
that's great. That's half the battle. And then it's about making it easy for them to buy it. And often that's where you can fall down. If you make them have $1,000 minimum, as much as they love your product, they're not likely to risk that.
Yeah.
So, when I talk about barrier to sale, I'm sort of saying, price, is it priced well? Have they got their margins they're expecting? Quantity, have you asked too much of them for quantity and pack sizes? And especially in the beginning, let them try it. Let them, if
Yeah.
you've got confidence in your product, we use today, let them buy twos if we can, because
Yeah.
we're confident they'll be back and buy sixes, right? And then also it's about ease of order and reorder. So how easy are you to deal with? How easy are your systems? You've got to keep building things in multiple ways, because this buyer might like to buy at 12 o'clock at night when the kids are in bed, wherever it may be. And this buyer might like to do it first thing in the morning with you on the phone. We've got reps on the road who get text message photographs from some retailer saying, hey, give me a restock and here's what it looks like today. So we're not in any way saying, oh no, you can't do that. We want to meet them where they are. So
Yeah.
I think you've got the presentation right and the barriers to sale right, or you've considered all of that, then that's the right magic formula to get into the right hands and stay there.
Yeah. And what else do they sort of need to have in place? I mean, you kind of mentioned barcodes earlier, there's
Yeah.
sorts of, and presumably, the packaging has to be um,
Yeah.
suited to whatever their display mechanisms are, shelves, hang
Yeah.
cells, etc.
Yeah, and I think when we're looking at products today, and Baby Ink keeps getting refreshed and revamped all the time with fresh eyes, sure, they need simple things like barcodes, even if they don't use them, and some people don't at that level, depending on where they are. These systems are getting slicker and they're demanding things like barcodes. So, it's not hard to get some barcodes done properly. It's not hard to consider both hang and shelf space. So we always say, we're not going to dictate how you present this product. We're going to make it easy for you. If you want to hang it, you can, and that should be built in. If you want to put it on shelf and it's in a lovely shelf display unit of some sort, we'll build that for you too. So all our inners for Baby Ink, as an example, come pre-done in lovely looking shelf display units in case that's the way they'd like to sell them. And if not, they'll take them out. But it gives them the option. And so we're always building with the end game in mind, be it that, look, should it go to bigger retailers, we know that those inners will need to have barcodes and the outers will need to have barcodes, and then it gets a bit more intense from there. But at least if we build it from the start, you've got that ready to go.
Yeah.
And be smart about pack sizes. We're talking about whether a retailer, it's all good to put 24 in a box, but will that sell? What's the actual unit cost of that inner or that shelf display? Is it too much? And then because if it is, you'll end up breaking down packs in a warehouse or when you get home or whatever. You'll end up breaking them down, which of course costs labor. So it's just about really kind of thinking about the end game all the time, but starting small, and having all that ready for bigger retail or for retailers, making it easy more than anything.
Yeah, totally. As you're talking, it's making me think a lot about how my husband's pharmacy operates. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
that's a retail store in a slightly different way, but they order very small quantities, but they're
That's,
ordering oftentimes twice a day.
that's right. That's right. Absolutely. And that's what suits them, right? And we too work with small pharmacy who that's what they want and that's what they expect. So if you're going to dabble in gift, for example, and you're not on medicine, and you've not got those channels, then they're going to want to spend very small amounts of money very often. And you better be ready to take that. If you put barriers to them, they will just hands up. No matter how beautiful it is, they'll find an alternative. They're busy and time poor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What about pricing? I know that how to price for, the margins and all of that kind of jazz, that's often a massive question mark for a lot of people coming in. Presumably it's a little bit different as well compared to like the different types of retailer and types of product.
Yeah, and I think that's a good example of building ahead and building for the end game in mind. If you do want to go into baby bunting, you've got to make sure that you've got extras covered in terms of all the other fees and bits and pieces they're going to be putting on top of your wholesale. They won't just buy it wholesale. There'll be theft and other things that they care about, pilferage and so on. So it's important than warehousing fees, and the fees just sort of add up. So you need to be adding an extra in the case of, or if I get to, in there, and that allows you to work backwards. Worst case, it's not active or used. That's okay. It can be redirected into marketing or what have you. I mean, obviously, you don't want to interrupt the RRP, though. It's important that the RRP is right. It's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? You've got to get the RRP right. You've got to satisfy the smaller retailer who'll buy often. You've got to then have margin enough to be able to access the big guys if that's what you so choose to do, and have something in there for yourself. So it's critically important because it's difficult to change. In fact, it really shouldn't be changed once you go to market, pretty much. Look, economic conditions can change things. But look, for example, we haven't changed baby ink pricing for many, many, many years, and we hold off at all possible opportunity because we know what that does for retailers and it does for the market. And so it can happen, but it's what I would set carefully and consciously early.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, everybody's from every stage needs to have that cash flow. If there's not enough in it for everybody, then we're all a bit stuffed. So.
Right, and cash is king, right? So the cash flow, like any business, that doesn't matter. That is absolutely, and in a business like ours today too, same thing. It's just on a different scale, but the cash flow, of course, and the opportunity cost on things, very important. I'm the first person to put my hand up and say, I'm not a big numbers person. I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm not a numbers person, and sometimes you don't have to be all things, and don't pretend to know it all. Seek some help, seek the right people, put the right people around the business, even if it's short term and it's advisory, to get the pricing right for you and to help you, and Catherine, you know all about that, right? To get some advice to tell you how to do this. It's okay to ask.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I still do that now. I mean, even now, my business changes and grows, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know how to do that, so I'm just going to
find out.
Tell me.
That's right. That's what they know how to do. It probably took me a long time to get there, where as a younger 21-year-old who knew everything, that's I think what happens. We go, I know how to. I'll work that out, and that's a great kind of cultural fit for entrepreneurship, I should say, in that, I'll work that out. I'll do it and work it out later. But having some humility, especially as you get a bit older and you've been around the block a few times, say, you know what, even today, I don't know, I'm going to plug in the lawyer and I'm going to plug in XYZ to invest. And I appreciate this money doesn't grow on trees, so there's an investment to make, but it's a worthy investment. To have someone professional tell you, fill that skill gap, because it's really important in the long run.
So do you think, and this is a bit of a tangent question, but do you think when you bought that business back and, moved into growing Kollektive, was this a different approach for you, that you started to get that kind of specialist help where maybe it wasn't your core expertise?
Yeah, and, you can imagine if you put yourself in my shoes. I mean, I bought it back with my now husband. You get this unique opportunity to say, and I think you think of that at different times throughout the years, where you say, what would I have done differently? And when you get a chance to do it differently the second time, physically and really, it's interesting because I think you do find a lot of humble kind of like, okay, yep, I did a great job, but I could have done it this way and that way. And the benefit of experience, you shouldn't beat yourself up either. The benefit of experience is there, and some years had passed. But the principles of why I loved that brand were there. They were always there, in the sense that brand and product is great, does a great job for parents. It's a keepsake emotional buy, which I was really loving that space. But I knew that if I had a good relationship with the buyer and they like to buy baby ink from me, if I had 10 other great brands or 20, they would like to buy more things from me more often, more brands, because the relationship I had was strong. So if you can get all those things down early, I think it's invaluable. And as I said to you, I've had the school of hard knocks on things like IP, and there's so much you don't know until you sometimes probably spend big money making the mistake. That's okay too. But
as long as it's only once, right?
You can't keep doing it. So look, there's so many mistakes I've made, and we all do. But if you can learn from them, and probably the biggest lesson is less about, I've learned that way and I won't do that again. It's probably, it becomes more about like, I'll just check that first. Or it's having that nous to say, I'll just check with someone who, and maybe it's a mentor, or it doesn't have to be a paid outsourced person. I mean, it's good if you can get that advice, but
Yeah.
It's just there's probably lots of people around that you'd be surprised that would absolutely help you out, and worth asking.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I wanted to ask a question now about what is the best way to approach retailers, or to kind of approach that sales process.
Yeah.
Just from your opinion, what's really, really worked well, or what do you see working the best these
Yeah.
days?
So, I mean, there's a few ways. It's really challenging, especially when you're starting out. You think it's a challenge to get it in front of the right buyer, and in front of the right person. Generally speaking, these guys are time poor, and be it a big head honcho at Baby Bunting right down to the country town store, everyone's time poor. Everyone's getting lots of products and brands thrown at them all the time. So I'm a big one for meeting the retailers where they are.
Yeah,
Not having, again, a barrier to how that presents. Do they come to 2 trade shows a year and walk around, and that's when they do their buying? Some of them do. So you've
yeah,
got to be there.
yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah,
about, so I'm a big advocate for trade shows and exhibiting at trade shows, if no less than just for the experience, to learn. You'll get a good cross section of buyers in a short amount of time. If you're not afraid to ask them tough questions, you'll definitely get the answer. They'll tell you. If you ask them nicely, they'll say, oh, I don't like this, and that should be like that. And look, everyone always can tell you how they think that something should be, but generally
yeah,
speaking, you get this good feeling over the time, 4 or 5 days, of a pretty consistent message coming to you. Your pack sizes are too high. Oh, that's nice. Thanks very much. I'm walking off. So I actually really big advocate for doing something like that. If you can't or you don't want to, probably the best thing to do is really just do some proper research. I think there's nothing worse than getting a formatted email or message, I guess, on socials these days or similar, that's got no personal kind of connection. There's no thought. Take the time to learn who they are. Acknowledge that they are busy, but you'd really appreciate them having a look and giving you the feedback. And sometimes it's okay to say, hey, can I drop some of these in for you to try? Pop them
yeah,
on the, see how they go. Again, this is all just about relationships, isn't it? And building the right relationships.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, and in some ways, then for some people it probably does make sense to actually work with someone like you, who has, first of all, has those relationships, but
Yeah.
also is the expert in that kind of area. So if it's not somebody else's zone of genius, maybe
Yeah,
rather
that's
than
right.
outsourcing to chat GPT,
Sure.
send
And
generic messages.
yeah, and it's one of those things where there's, generally speaking, for a distributor, you work with an international brand and you look after them here, and that's your job. But we've actually found over the last few years, because we've done a pretty good job, we like to think, we have been approached by some really big Australian brands who actually just want that outsourced. So
Yes,
it's not that they don't have the know-how or the capability. They know that lots and lots of small orders, it's a little bit like the pharmacy piece, lots of small orders all the time is not necessarily something they've built themselves for, or they want to necessarily be doing all day. And there's nothing wrong with that. So what I would say is, how do you like to spend your time? If you're a true salesperson and you enjoy selling, then great, do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't. If you love designing, making, perhaps you're in more the social media branding side of it, but you'd really like to outsource sales, because I think it's sales really is king. I think
yeah,
people forget that. It's lovely to put a business up, but if you're not selling anything, that isn't going to help you. Then yes, companies like ours can help in theory. You do, though, have to find extra margin in there, which can be challenging. So as long as, again, if you build your pricing way back,
yes,
with the thought that, hey, maybe I will outsource some things, hey, maybe this and that, then at least it's there.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, obviously there's a few pros and cons there, and just considerations on, yeah, like you say, what you're good at and what you prefer to do. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and you might be good at it, but you don't like doing it, or reversed. So, I think there's no harm in saying that. I too have that challenge in the business today. As the business grew and we've got a great team, and you'd appreciate this too, Catherine. You're like, well, what do I like to do in the business? The business is quite big, so I could sit myself in this department, or I guess, or this activity and this activity. And I think it's okay to say, look, I'm good at and love to do all day this. Of course, there's good and bad parts of everything, but if I had my magic wand, I'd be sort of sitting here.
mm,
Therefore, I'll effectively outsource or get staff for or help in the rest. And
yeah.
that's
I mean, at the end of the day, we all only have 24 hours in the day. We can't work all of them. And at some point we hit our upper limit and have to work out what our 20%, maximum focus should be to get the 80%, output.
That's right.
And then either build a team or delegate outsourced. So
That's
yeah.
right. And you
Yeah.
can have 100% of something or 80% of something amazing. I mean, there's choices to make. That's all. So, and I think, unfortunately, with entrepreneurship and small business, you can find that it's so all-consuming, and there's a point there where you really do need to prioritize your mental health, and it becomes quite a serious, the growth ridges become quite serious in the sense that you really do need to make calls. And yet it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to hire people in. If you can or want to do that, great. There's other opportunities these days, especially now with technology the way it is, to have virtual assistants and to kind of outsource like to us and other different types of companies, or seek the help. It's definitely a worthy investment, even for your own mental health and your family and everything else.
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of pivot slightly with the conversation, in your own business journey, would you share some of those, difficult, challenging things that you've had to go through? I mean, obviously you've had a few iterations here, so there must have been a few.
Yeah, there's a few. I could choose from a few probably, but probably what's most relevant, and I guess I'm always happy to share these things, and I imagine they're a similar vein to others, but I think you've got to be careful about external conditions. You can control what you can, and it's a mindset more than anything, where you need to say, well, I can control these things and I can't control these, but what I can do is be agile. And I think our agility has really continued to see us through any external conditions. COVID, cost of living now, the retail market's really shaky at the moment, and the sentiment's really tough. So, that's okay. We're not scared off by that, but we have to be agile, and we have to it's no good putting the head in the sand. You've got to say, well, how can we adapt here? So, for example, some of our more popular brands, we had higher pack sizes for, that we literally reduced by more than half, to make sure that retailers felt that they could come back and order more often and take less and put less on shelves to ease the burden. Yes. And although that puts a slight more burden on our warehouse, that was an agile move we made to help consider this time, and make sure that we were going to go with them and roll with them, and that we're there to support them. So the agility on external conditions, I think, is absolutely paramount. And in a similar way, growing pains. I think growing pains are one of those things. Sometimes you can control some of that, and sometimes you can't still. But how you handle growing pains and the ridges that I always say that I find you always think, oh, I'm going to get to this point and it'll all
be fine. Yeah.
It'll be fine. And then human nature says you'll get to that ridge, and you're looking at the next one, and then you're off, and you're off before you've even thought about it. So that's okay. I think growing pains is highly underrated in terms of its core need to keep reviewing and, again, keep agile with. And I'd say that for us, there's that real barrier you break through every now and then, going from just you and your husband, or whatever it may be, and then hiring externally, and you've actually got team on, and then you're responsible for more than just yourself and your family, and then you really break through so much. And again, it's a similar thing where you say, I don't know how to hire people.
Yeah.
I don't know much about HR. I don't know. There's a big legality around some of this, a tax implication. There's accounting and HR, and there's things attached to people management that I think until you get there, you don't realize is there. But again, that's okay. It's about outsourcing and getting the right help. There are lots of HR specialists around, or we don't actually have a HR person on staff, but we have someone we work with that we have on that, what we feel is on the team, that deals with all that for us. So there's always an answer, is probably my biggest advice, right? There'll be an answer. I promise.
Everything's figure outable.
That's right. So I'd say, external conditions and controlling or letting go thereof, but agility in it. Growing pains and growth, same thing, agility in that space, and cutting yourself a bit of slack wherever possible. probably the other is investment. I mean, there's opportunity cost. When you get to a point where you've got lots of opportunity and you've got to say no, entrepreneurs like me don't know how to do that all that well, you know.
Isn't it? Yeah.
In the beginning, I was saying yes to everything and working it out later. And
Yeah.
it's really, I think it's a personally tough transition to get to a place where you've got to say no. And then you've got a team of people looking at you like, don't you even think about that? Because it's, you know, it's more than just you making those calls that it impacts. And so, yeah, you know, be careful about how you invest. I mean, cash flow is always going to be a challenge, but it's not just cash, it's time. Where are you investing your time and why? And taking quick pauses all the time to just make sure you're a pulse check. Are you
Yeah.
on the right track, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What about, I mean, you sort of touched on before, like it's tough for your retailers at the moment. Um, how do you help them? Because, you know, I think that it is, some of it's, you know, uncontrollable, but there's also the mindset side of things there where, you know, because things are tough, you know, it's easy to think, well, this is hopeless and it's never going to get better and I can't do anything to help it.
Yeah.
I guess, how do you help them, you know,
Yeah.
to stay
It's
afloat and keep selling and all of that kind of stuff?
funny you said that, Catherine, because we're coming up towards World Mental Health Day, and I've been doing a bit of work with a few external organisations, and just to get my opinion on the market, because we have such a pulse on sort of A, the retail market, and B, these small independent retailers who often just can't shut the shop for half a day if they don't feel that well or
Yeah.
whatever's going on, right? So what we find is that getting them to prioritize some mental health there is really important. I think we're seeing, unfortunately, as I'm sure everyone is, a little bit of stress around financial capability. Hey, I'm really down. I'm not going to be able to pay that invoice this month, or can I pay it off in $50 lots over weeks? And you're kind of like, well, there's some flags there. Less about the financial and more about how this person's coping or how that business is coping, and you know how much responsibility we have is a little bit unknown, except that we probably definitely could be asking are you okay a bit earlier or a bit more frequently than perhaps the are you okay day, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, the human element here that's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
What we can do from a business side is say, yeah, of course, you know, we can work with you on the financials. Hey, I guess it's about asking questions. What
Mm,
else can we do? Are you sitting on old stock that we
mm,
could take back for you and, you know, rejig and help you with? Can we reduce your minimums? Yes. Are the things we can do here, as I mentioned, pack sizes we've reduced, and now they're buying in twos, while pretty much across the company, which is not something we would normally, especially a company like this, I don't think we would normally be needing to or pushing out twos. It's a lot of work in the warehouse, but we
mm.
do. And we have a pretty basic kind of cash minimum to spend overall across all our brands. So we make it really easy. Hey, you can pick and choose that suits you. It'll be based on your seasonality, whatever it may be. And the risk for them and the pressure of placing an order that they're not sure is going to sell or not goes away, where they know that A, we're friendly if something was to go wrong, but B, it's likely they will sell the two, and the risk reduces.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, they end up spending the same or more, but they just spread.
Yeah, and probably because they feel more confident, they're approaching their job of selling with that confidence too.
Yeah, and I like to think that they can see a partner in us, and it's less about a supplier,
Mm.
and it's a transactional type piece. And we've always been big about building long-term relationships. And we don't expect we're going to get invited over for barbecue on a Sunday, but you know,
No.
we like that we've got people on the road. We invest in those people to make sure they're seeing them. There's lots of things we're doing for them above the transaction, you know, like above and beyond just the transactional bit, to make sure that we're really linked in for a long time, because we know that should we bring more brands on, new products and so on, they're more likely to try them or take them on even in tough times, or especially in tough times they'll choose us. And we saw that just recently in some trade shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So good. I guess from our perspective, you know, with helping these sorts of brands with their marketing, I mean, I see a lot of brands unfortunately think that the way they need to help is just to run out a big discount, which is not super helpful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I understand the want to do that, but
Mm,
there's other things you can do.
mm.
Yeah.
So through your, several years in business now, and, you've achieved some amazing stuff. I mean, I see you getting some great PR and news media and all of this kind of stuff. So you've achieved some pretty amazing things. What would you say is like one or two of the major kind of innovations that you've rolled out in your business that have really fueled that growth?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Catherine. I think we're really focused on, really smart systems. We take systems that are built maybe in other sectors that would make sense here. We have really smart, good systems around the place. We have pretty strong agility and a good culture. We like to play on words with the K's, so our company's Kollektive with K's.
Yes.
So our whole culture piece with a K. We joke about being the Kardashians, but
Yes.
Kris Jenner's come in here and swished all the K's around. But we really do. We're about creativity with a K and culture with a K, and you name it. And commitment with K, and you name it. So we've got the right culture and, of course, the right team. So to me, it's less about innovation and more about the humans around the business, because people make the difference. And so if I've got the people right, then innovation in systems and the way we do business has come and will come, and I hope draw some attention in that it's more than just being able to pick up some baby blankets from China and put it in a container the way perhaps it used to be done and put them in baby bunting. I mean, this business has changed.
Yeah.
Social media and the world has shrunk. And so the ability to have a team it becomes an extension of perhaps we do a lot of work with Europe. So we've effectively become an extension of the European head office team in Australia and New Zealand. And we work that way. We're working together. It's less about buying their goods and selling them. We're working as part of a big global strategy, and we uniquely understand that. So again, it still comes down to partnership and people. And so it's less innovation specifically and more how we do business. And it's very human centric.
People doesn't start with a K.
No. No, and now I'm trying to think of one. You know what, I've got a whole list.
Yeah.
I could you, Catherine, with a K if I need to. No.
Yeah.
We've got a long, it's here in the office, we've got a long list of Ks, and it's great fun. And I think it's something that really allows us, because the business has been founded on very humble values and still is the same way it is today. It wouldn't matter how big it got. This is just humble, good business being done the best way possible. We're not perfect, but we really care about what we're doing. And I think it shows. I think that's why you mentioned some media and other bits, because I like to think that sort of thing's infectious. That's a bottle ability, the K's, the fun. It's okay not to have fun along the way, right? It's not all serious business.
No, well,
we're in the baby and kids space. It's fun and colourful. I've got a warehouse, I've got an office here with all the fun, and that's okay.
And do you know what I think comes through for me in chatting with you is, the authenticity of your relationships with all the people around you. I mean, we're having a good chat, but I imagine your team and your clients and everyone that you do business with would probably have the same reaction.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's actually something that we all crave a lot, particularly since, post-COVID and lockdowns and all of that stuff where we were so isolated as humans. But, the world seems to be moving away from it. So with all this chat GPT stuff and AI and all of that kind of stuff, which I know plays a role in life and business, but we can't remove the human element entirely.
No, and I think we've backed ourselves on that exact thing. We've backed in that humans will always still buy from humans. I'm pretty big about that, right? Humans will buy from humans.
Yeah.
At what level you're at, big, multinational retailer buyers, right through to smaller country town retailers. You will buy from me, I'll buy from whatever. That everyone is buying from each other still, and you can have really slick, sharp systems and AI, and that's all good stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, and we have lots of it around the warehouse and in systems and processes. But humans will ultimately still always make the difference. So that's what I've always been about.
Yeah, love it. So, what have you got looking forward to for the rest? And there's not much of
No, I know how quick is it going to
next year.
Well, look, we always look forward to some really good stuff coming out of our brands and what they're up to. We sort of always get a sneak peek about what that looks like, and I'm always so impressed and not surprised, I guess, by what fantastic innovations coming from them. We leave them to do a bit of innovating, and we we get it to market and make it look good. But so I'm excited by that. I mean, there's actually always, generally speaking, something in the pipeline from us in terms of new brands. There's certainly new products coming from our existing portfolio and all our partners, but we're likely to onboard some more partners, both internationally and locally. I guess for me, it's probably I'm enjoying doing a bit more of this, and I think I enjoy some consulting and a little bit of coaching and speaking and a few other bits and pieces. So I think it's important now to spend some time, again, doing what you love to do. I mean, I love being in the business, but there's a good balance or mix about, say, perhaps, I don't want to say the word giving back. That sounds a bit, but I feel that it is nice to be able to spend some time with up and coming businesses or younger entrepreneurs, because I was that younger entrepreneur. So however I could do a bit of that, I'd love to.
Share your experience for sure. I have one final question for you today, and I love asking everyone this question.
Oh, no.
What do you love the most about being a business owner?
Oh, gosh. You're lucky it's a good day. No. You know what? For me, it's about flexibility. You know, I never set out ever to make money. That will come. And so if you back yourself in, you'll make money. But what I really care about is flexibility. I like to work for myself. I like to run my own show. I like that freedom. And I guess as I've become a parent and have a family, of course, that becomes even more important. So definitely flexibility. If I had one word for it, it would be that.
Love it. Yeah. So for any of our listeners who want to connect with you online, give yourself a shout out.
So we're kollektive.com.au, we're kollektivewholesale.com.au, but you'll find us and the team here kind of connect, and I am too. I'm personally around as well, so feel free. And it's really nice to do this with you, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you so much for jumping on. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, pleasure. We'll talk soon.